Let's see, are you in there?
I can edit it.
Yeah, there you go, good, okay. As I was walking around today, as they were expanding the polynomial, there was a number of kids that they would get the terms on the extreme terms, the terms on the outside, but a number of them were missing like an inside term.
Yeah.
You know, like for instance, on the this would have been, let's see, this would have been x, well, x plus y to the fourth. They would miss that middle term just in their, you know, expanding the polynomials.
Here, Jed will.
Okay, so Jed had as an example.
Or they would get middle terms, but they would always use the power as the coefficient.
Oh.
That's what
Because
Jimmy started
Right.
saying about it.
cubed, exactly, because cubed is 3 and 3, that's correct.
So he
but-
didn't actually multiply it out, he was just
No,
guessing.
he
What
was
the-
Right,
just
and that's
Interesting.
what Jimmy, when Jimmy Ryan,
Jimmy
when
Ryan,
he came
yeah.
up, when
Yeah.
he came up, right, he had, you know, he kind of had you know, he understood this. He understood, hey, there's 9 times in there that's being multiplied together. But as he did that, you know, he sees the first and last, but those inside terms were,
Yeah.
he didn't quite have that.
Yeah, so as a teacher, if you walked around and you saw this work,
Right.
what would you say to the student?
You know, one of the things would be how, when I multiply a trinomial by a binomial, I try and put all the similar terms in a vertical line so that I can
Combine like
put
those.
them together. And I don't know if they did that just in the setup. It's to some of them, I think it's just the housekeeping sometime of how they're doing multiplying terms is a little hard.
I think the main problem here is because they are trying just to compare with the prior one. And this relationship that we see here, the pattern that we're trying to find, is not only by the prior one, there's the second one, there's the first one. And that's, I think they were having a hard time. They just was taking a look at the last one. This is a third, it's gonna be 4, here's 3, it's gonna be 4, and then here's gonna be 3, goes down, some of them figure out that, some of them don't. So they just use an isolate thing. And that's what I was trying to explain to you. Look, we're gonna start with a simpler example, but how they are building up, how one by one is following a pattern, and they don't understand. I think they just look at the previous example, and that's it.
You bring up a really nice point that, right, this is a common misconception students have, is that if you find a pattern after 3, that pattern has to continue.
Right, right. Yeah, I
And so
gotcha. I
he
gotcha.
never multiplied out, right? He
Right.
just said, I found a pattern. It works for the first power, works for the second, works for the third. It has to work for the fourth power.
Yeah.
So this is what it's going to be. So recognizing that that's what he did, what would we then say or ask to this student?
So I had Claire Needham and Jack McGinnis in front of me working, and this is that pattern that they were doing. So I asked Claire, I was like, can you show me why you have 4 x squares, y squares? And I asked her, how did you get this term, this term, this term? And so she showed me, okay, well, I have 1 here, 2 here, and she had too many, is what it came down to. And that's why I was asking her, like, how did you get each term? So I was just focusing on 1 x squared, y squared, because that's the one, it's 6 x squared, y squared.
Okay.
That's the one that's not 4. And so I was trying to focus
Right.
on how many do you have? And then we had to stop because you brought the class back together. But even talking with Claire and Jack, he kept saying, I don't know if you're gonna get x to the 6th y cubed in x plus y to the 9th.
Oh.
Because I only see x to the whatever power y to the 1st. He didn't see the pattern of
On this
as the
Bang.
Right.
exponents for x increased, the y values, as the x exponents decreased, the y values increased. And he didn't see that pattern, so I said, okay, well, let's look at the previous patterns. what's happening with the y's?
Okay.
What do you see going on? He goes,
Yeah.
oh, it's not always y to the first. They are increasing.
Right.
Okay,
Um,
okay, good.
So just by looking back at their work and asking them like, well, how can you justify that this is a 4? It's not a 4.
Gotcha.
And asking
Right.
them to justify that.
Right.
Yeah, similar, I was thinking, and that's so interesting, because I was thinking that, I have a feeling I know what they did, I think they're guessing. But
Okay.
I'd still ask to make sure and say, how did you come up with this?
Yeah.
And they could say, oh, I found this pattern, so I think it must be this. My question might next be, how would you check if you're right?
Okay,
And then get them
okay.
saying, oh, well, we can multiply the
This-
cubic one by X
By
times
one
plus
more,
Y
right.
by one more, I say, well, do it.
Yeah.
You have the time, go do it right now.
Right.
But
Okay.
I think what we're seeing here in terms of like this pattern generalization that's going on here, that's not correct, because
Uh-huh.
they're generalizing
Yeah.
from too few of them.
Yep, yep.
And of course, eventually we'd
Maybe
like them to
either
prove
way.
all this, but
Yeah.
we didn't get to that in this class.
Mhm.
Expanding it, and how do you expand this in a way to make sure that you've collected all the terms and things, and like your thing about organizing it, maybe it's something that makes
Yeah.
it so you can find them all. These are all learning opportunities for these. It sounds like after we give them some time to do this X to the 4th, we would want a couple students to go up and present how they did X plus Y to the 4th.
Absolutely.
That this class
Right.
seems like they need that.
Right, and
Yeah.
you know, you're right, that would be, in this, that would be a key expansion, because that has the coefficient of the
First one
6.
is gonna be
Yeah.
And I don't think they realize from here, you know, that middle coefficient is different from the other ones. Here, you got the 3 as the
You keep
coefficient in
repeating.
the middle, you know, and so that X plus Y to the 4th might be the first one that they're gonna see that, with
Right.
that 6 coefficient in the middle.
Right.
How